It was an unbelievable amount of work, a huge volume. I don't know, we didn't keep track, but we probably went through maybe 15 or 20 55-gallon drums of sawdust just in the preparation of all of this. So it was that much work. And not only that, they came and they did that as volunteers. They've been here this week as volunteers on their own. And if we don't recognize them, it would be totally a failure for this entire workshop. So let's recognize these guys. On Monday that, you know, our staff is an incredible group of people, and while these guys were doing all of that work, well, believe it or not, our staff were able to do other things to get us ready to open up. If you could have been here a week ago, you would have walked around and said, there's no way you're going to be ready to open. But we were able to do that. And so our staff, and you've got to know them, of course you got Will and Eric and Doug. And Doug's here this evening. Where's Doug at? He's back over here. And now I know a lot of you know Doug, but there's a third of you that don't know Doug. Maybe this is the first time you're here. But for those of you to know, Doug has worked here since he was in a workshop the day the towers were hit. So that's how far back we're going to go. And the next year, he started working for me full time, and he lives in Cincinnati. Drives 100 miles one way each day to be here. And so, even in the winter, doesn't matter when, he's usually the first one here, and he's almost always the last one to go home. And so we're very, very fortunate and blessed to have Doug be a big part of our program. Don, who is here right now, he's been here helping us get everything ready. And those guys have worked very, very hard behind the scenes, and even this week, to be able to make things run as smooth as possible. Of course, we have our media staff here. We have Robert and Sherry and Diane, who mentioned in the other day. And then we have our cafeteria staff and my wife Susie and Paula. Unbelievable people. Let's give all of them a big round of applause. And then, of course, the reason we're here tonight. So here's just a little housekeeping on how tonight and tomorrow are going to go. We are going to give each one of our 4 charities a platform tonight to tell us a little bit about themselves. Give us a better idea of why they're here and exactly what it is that they do, and so that you'll be able to make a choice. So on Monday, my concept was on Monday, half of your money needed to be committed to go somewhere. And at that point in time, if you haven't done research online, you at least were able to read about them in the brochure. So you knew something about the groups that were going to be here. But not enough. And so the idea was during the week this week, they would actually be here. They would be in rotations. You get to meet them a little bit more and talk to them. But tonight's the night that we get to learn about what they do and where their hearts are and why it's important for us to be able to support them. And that's why I didn't want you to give all of your money to one group before you got here. I wanted to give you the opportunity to determine how you wanted to do the rest of it. So after tonight, tomorrow morning, you'll be able to commit the remaining $475 or more. And probably starting at 9 o'clock, and I'll talk about the rotations in just a second, starting at probably 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. We want to have this done before lunch. Susie will be in the cafeteria area. And then you can come in and you can make the commitment to her, and she will put that in the appropriate folder. At lunch tomorrow, I will be announcing how well we did through this event. I will not say exactly how much each charity has been given. That's their business. But I will say what the overall total will be. And then that way we'll know how incredibly generous everybody was this year. We've had quite a bit of money that has been already donated from people who couldn't make it to our event. So we will include that in our totals as well. Now tomorrow, where we are today, and we knew this, if you remember on Monday, I said by Friday things will start to turn into chaos. And some people still have to make this cut, some people still need to get this pressed, some people still have to sand that, we still have to make the tops fit the way that they will fit, and all of that would come down to Friday. So we knew that. And so we've broken our day into two basic sessions, basically. So the first group tomorrow morning will be about a 2-hour cycle. And I don't know off the top of my head what letters those groups are, but you're going to go back to the same group that you were in on Monday. So that will be the group that you're in. Let's just say Group A and Group B will be in the South Building, and in that South Building will be Will and Doug. So anything in those two areas that they did, at that time, you'll have a couple of hours to work on sanding, fitting, whatever it might be that you would have done in those two guys' rotations. The other groups, let's say C and D, you'll be with me and Eric. And you'll be able to do whatever it might be that you need to do with your top or with your veneer at that point in time. And I'm going to ask, please, that you wait until the next rotation. So even though you might have a little bit more to do here, you still probably have to fit your top, and you probably still need to do your sanding. So I'm going to ask that you wait until the appropriate time to get those things done. Those of you who still have one layer of veneer to go on, and some of you have it done, you have a few more things that you needed to work on, we will do one more pressing tomorrow, and it'll probably be mid-morning. I don't know exactly when. I have to wait and see exactly what it is that we need to do, but I want to make people aware that there will be another pressing tomorrow morning. And then at 10 o'clock or 10:15 or whatever it might be, excuse me, we'll then go into the second rotation. We are not certain, but we believe from having done similar workshops in the past that most of everything we need to do can be done by that time. So I don't know that we'll really need to go into the 2 afternoon sessions because basically everything's pretty close to being done now. And so that'll be our goal. Then we're going to have lunch, and we'll make the final announcements at that point in time and let anybody do any final work. If you remember, I asked you in your schedule to keep in mind that we've got to flip this building back to the way we need it to be to go into Monday when we start back here officially. Excuse me. So I'm going to ask that you guys please put it in your schedule to stay and help us. If we work together, and most of you know that we have a process for how we clean the place. It's not just go grab a broom. It's that we vacuum everything, we put everything back the way it was, we make sure that the vacuum cleaners are dumped out and clean. And if we all work together, we can have this place knocked out in 15 or 20 minutes. But when you leave just me and my staff, it'll take us until 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And it's just not fair for us to have to go through and do all of that work. So please plan on being here at the end, which I believe is probably going to be shortly thereafter lunch. Excuse me, but again, we'll have to wait and see how that all works out. So tonight is an opportunity for us to get to meet our staff. Our 4 charities. But I just noticed Diane back here. Diane, real quick before we do that, she's been taking photos this week, and it might be good to let her tell us about how we can access those.
Yes. I want you guys to know how to access them. You download them. You don't have to buy them. There is a buy tab there, and I heard some people this week to say that, yeah, all I can do is buy them. No, you can download them and use them and enjoy them however you want. And so, I'm blind. I need to get the lights. Sorry. That should do it. Are you making fun of me? That's it. Okay, this is our Smug Mug site, and you see a link to it from our webpage. So this is, I know you can't see it very well, but these are all the photos that I've taken this week is in this gallery. This gallery is, there's going to be a link on our webpage where you can upload any of the photos you took this week. And we'd love to see any pictures of finished boxes after you get them home and you've got them all a nice finish on them. If you could take a picture of yourself with your box and then upload them here. It's just going to be a new fun feature. This one says charity event, student shared photos, charity event with the MASW staff. So you can see here, click on that. All of these photos are here. And like I said, there is a buy button, but if you go here, that's a download button. That's a share button. If this one's a download button, and you just, it's for free. You don't have to pay, there's no extra cost for that, okay? Anything else, Sherry? You guys good? Okay. All right, so use those, enjoy them all year long. We put those up. Any questions, anybody else on that? Okay. I'm done.
Okay. So we're going to give our 4 charities tonight 15 minutes or so, or whatever we think that is fair in that time frame. If they start to go into the 30 and 40 and 50, Diane will kind of manage things and let them know when it's time to move on. We do want to give them the fair amount of time. So 15 is going to be the time that we've told them that they have, and then we'll kind of monitor from there. Who goes first? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to draw straws. Because I don't want anybody to think that one is being the first one out and the last one out. So I want to make it fair for everybody. So I'd like for one representative from each of the organizations to come on up. The short straw will go first, all the way up to the longest straw will go last. Okay? At that point in time tonight when they get started, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, tell you everything about them and all that. Okay? So, again, short goes first, long goes last. I'd say let's do this by the best looking guys.
I ain't got a chance.
Hold it. So we'll start here. Anyone you want. Okay, so it's pretty obvious who's going to go first. Second, third, and fourth. So let's give these guys a good round of applause.
Tough act to follow.
Be glad you didn't have to arm wrestle for who goes first. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ben Wilhite. This is Jesse Richardson, and we are 2 of the 3 co-founders of Send Me Outdoors. And before I get started, I really just want to say thank you to Marc and your staff here, and to all the contributors here as well. This is the sort of opportunity that we didn't imagine we could have. As you guys may know, we're a young charity. We believe that we have an outsized impact, but we have been primarily self-funded so far up to this point. And this opportunity that you all are providing us will allow us to do some pretty fantastic things, and Jesse will talk about those in a few minutes. While we're getting going here, you will be getting a yellow ribbon, a couple of yellow ribbons, and we have one at least, hopefully, for each of the staff and the guests here. And we'll talk a little bit about these ribbons and tell you why they matter to us, and these names that Jesse's writing on the board here. But first I'm going to go into the origins of our organization. About 6 years ago, a group of us signed up for the Boston Marathon's Tough Ruck. And it's a version of the Boston Marathon that happens the day before the actual marathon. And we go out there and we ruck, carrying the names of our fallen brothers and sisters in arms. And we do that to help try to keep their memories alive. As we continue to do that, and this will be our 6th consecutive year doing this, we realized that it was really good for us as the group of people who did it consistently year after year. That time that we were spending together was good for us as fellowship. We were away from the stressors of home, away from the rest of life. We were engaging with each other in an outdoor environment. It was a little bit challenging, sometimes a lot challenging, but it was rewarding, and we felt that fellowship with each other. And so and then we lost a friend, unfortunately, and that's the ribbon I'm holding here, Shannon Kent, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her later. But we got a lot more people who hadn't joined us in previous years came out and helped us carry her name. And moving forward from there, we realized that we wanted to make it something official. We felt that there were certain communities in the military and law enforcement and first responders who did not have good representation from charitable organizations. And we thought that we could make a difference. And so our name is Send Me Outdoors. And you probably saw in the brochure where I talked about the biblical prophet who, when God asked who could go, he said, "Here am I, send me." And every one of these names that's on the board is somebody who stepped up and said, "Send me," when the time was right. They went and they did what needed to be done. Now, we as an organization also want to do that. We want to say, "Send me. How can we help?" If there's an area we can help within our veteran law enforcement and first responder community, we try to step in and fill that gap through adventure, through service, through wellness. And so Jesse's going to take a couple minutes here and talk about those aspects a little bit.
Thank you, Ben. So, as Ben said, the things that we focus on are serving our community through adventure, service, and wellness. A couple of vignettes for the way that we do things. We think those are the things that our community needs. Adventure, when we go out together and do something that's fun, deep sea fishing, or teaming up with we're on the hook hopefully in the next few months to go out for a go-kart racing track with some of the members of the community, bringing people together so that we can just have fun together. Service, we also think that one of the things that reinforces our fellowship is continuing to serve. And so one of the things I'm looking forward to next month, and I know that Ben's looking forward to also, one of our mentors is, he's a 75, 76-year-old veteran whose house is in a little bit of a state of disrepair. So we teamed up with Legion Homes, a company that's based out of Maryland, to replace this gentleman's roof. So there are costs that we're going to cover, and this company is going to help us serve him. We're going to apply a lot of the manpower with the members of our organization. And what's the third one? Wellness.
Wellness.
Dave's right. Public speaking is not my forte. So wellness. Whenever we do these events, we also try to make sure that we bring something of the wellness to our people. You know, it's for members of our communities, whether it's police or military or first responders, stepping up and saying, "I need help," is a difficult thing. So, for example, when we went to, we recently, 6 months ago, had a camping trip that we held out and we hosted out in South Carolina. We brought a representative of the Veterans Administration to demonstrate for members of our community different ways that they can live better, different options for treating their psychological issues or their physical issues or whatever is ailing them. Because there are a lot of resources for members of our community out there, and sometimes they just need to have that exchange brokered. They need to understand how to access that resource, and we want to be part of that resource. Good?
Absolutely. Thank you. Before I get into the more serious stuff, on these ribbons that I gave you, or that our team gave you, they are, when you look at them, you'll notice that they were made with love. They're not like the boxes that you guys have turned out here this week and perfect in every fashion. We made them with our family members, and it was a little bit of a trial and error process. So you'll notice there are a few rough edges, but that's okay. Maybe we can get Marc to teach us a ribbon making class one of these days, and then they'll be perfect. Okay, so these names, we're going to talk about each one of them, and the goal of writing them on the board here is so that you guys can see these names. These are all people who have passed. And we don't want this to have any impact on the donations we receive. That's not our intent. Our intent is to help keep these names alive and to talk to you all a little bit about the various facets in which, the aspects and the ways in which these people passed. Because we think that's important to talk about some of the problems and then also to talk about helping keep these names alive. So the first one on the list is Senior Chief Petty Officer Shannon Kent. Shannon was a friend of many of us. She was, as many who knew her would tell you, when the time came, she was always the first to say, send me. She volunteered for many deployments overseas, countless deployments overseas, and was doing fantastic work within the special operations community. And then she had a family, she had 2 young sons and a husband, and it came time for, she decided that it was time for her to move on from the operational life and move into something that was a little bit more family friendly, because these deployments take a toll. So she applied to be a Navy psychiatrist, and she was accepted into a doctor of psychiatry program where her goal was to help veterans with PTSD. The Navy had other plans, and I'm not going to tell you all the story. I'll give you just kind of a Cliff's Notes version, but before I forget, if you Google the name Shannon Kent, one of the first links you'll see is the legend of Chief Petty Officer Shannon Kent. And that will tell you far more than I can ever tell you in just this couple of brief minutes that we have here. And I encourage you to write her name down, to read the story, and learn about her. So the Navy had other plans for Shannon. They told her that she wasn't going to be able to do that at that time. She went to Congress to go fight that, and because it was a rule that was unfair, and it didn't make sense, and it was causing harm to others as well. But while she was going through that fight, another deployment opportunity came up, and she said, send me. And she went, and she was the only female service member from the United States who was killed in Syria. She was killed in January of 2019 by a suicide bomber. And it crushed a lot of us. It hurt really bad. That wasn't supposed to happen to her. We loved Shannon. We miss her every day. We carry her name with us on the ruck every year, and we do at every opportunity. We try to tell her story. I could talk for hours about her, but I think that's enough for now. I'm going to pass it back to Jesse to talk about Kenny.
Thank you, Ben. So the next gentleman we're going to remember is Specialist Kenneth Awazansky. I unfortunately never had the pleasure of meeting this young man. I met his mom. So that story, I'm going to try to be brief as well. The first year that we were doing this ruck that we were talking about, we sat down at the dinner very much like what we just did. Our team got there at the tail end, and we had to go through making ribbons. We have a lot of experience. We haven't perfected it yet, but we're getting there. One of our guys noticed that there was a lady sitting alone, joined her. He's a compassionate man, and we appreciate him very much. And it turns out that she was a Gold Star mom. Her son had been killed a few years earlier, and that was his birthday. And on his birthday, she was out serving members of the veteran community. Kenny, when he was deployed to Iraq, he was another one who said, send me. On the occasion of his final day, the driver for his truck, or his team's truck, had fallen ill and wasn't going to be able to do the thing. So Kenny raised his hand and said, send me, and he was ready to go. We learned of his story, and we carry his name, and we remember him because he's also one that's worth remembering.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to talk about Senior Chief Petty Officer Mike Day. He's another one that I never had the honor of meeting. He was friends of close friends, and I want to talk about Mike because of something that Don told us the other day. He talked about the epidemic of veteran suicide, and the very next day, Mike lost that battle. Mike was you've probably heard his name before, even if you don't remember it. Mike was a Navy senior chief SEAL who, when he was in operations in Iraq, one day went to clear a room and there was an ambush inside. And Mike was shot 27 times. He took quite a few of those rounds, I believe it was 13 or 14, hit him in his body armor, and the rest of them hit him all over his body, his head, his legs, his chest, his arms, and it was a horrible day. Mike woke up and saw the insurgents engaging his team, and he eliminated them as a problem. When he was interviewed afterward, he told everybody who had listened that the only thing that kept him alive that day was wanting to come home and see his daughters. He needed to come home and see his daughters, and he fought to stay alive. He was in really bad shape, but he made it. He came home. He's had a storied life since then as a public speaker, as an author, and from all outside, from what you would see on the outside, a happy, well-adjusted person. He lost the battle a couple of days ago, and we want to remember Mike.
So I'm going to pop up here real quick. Hi everyone, I'm Tyler. I'm a volunteer with Send Me Outdoors, and this next name on this board was a soldier of mine. Thanks to Send Me Outdoors, this is about the well-being side. I hadn't been able to say her name in 16 years, and it was from the camaraderie and the fellowship of this group that made it safe for me to actually speak her name. So for that, I'm eternally grateful for these gentlemen and everyone else that is associated with this group. Thank you. Tristan Moretti.
Hey everybody, my name's Eric. I have the privilege of introducing Sergeant First Class Mike Frody. He was one of our guys that belonged to us who also lost the battle in 2019. He was hit by an IED in 2007 in Iraq and sustained a significant brain injury, and it affected his life after that 100%. And ultimately, I think he also had numerous deployments to Africa, Iraq, Afghanistan, and they don't stop. You know, they keep going, and our people keep saying, send me again over. And when Mike left us, he left behind 2 daughters and a wife. And his name's up there for the same reason, to help us remember. And also, I hope that these names also help convey the gravity and the seriousness to which we take this. Like it means a lot to us. The donations that we receive, 100% go to help vets. And on the well-being side, there's not really medication that can treat this kind of stuff. And the best thing that we've found is that fellowship is what brings it back. So mostly what we do is we try to bring the human factor back. We let them know that they're not alone and that they do have somebody that they can talk to. And they have friends they can reach out to. And somebody that can help. You guys know what it's like to be overwhelmed. Well, imagine being overwhelmed all the time. Combine that with being terrified of everything. People, disconnect, you kind of lose your humanity. And the only way to get that back is that human connection. And we strive to provide that, and we strive to provide service to reiterate the connection and to also help with the feelings of being overwhelmed and lost. Thank all of you so much for listening and for being here.
Go ahead and do your wrap up. Jesse has a really good wrap up speech for you guys, so I don't want to deprive him of that honor.
Come on, man. We wanted to just close with saying thank you. Regardless of what organization you choose to donate to, you guys are the ones that are making an impact tonight and have been all week. You're making a positive impact to mobility, you're making an impact to each of these charities. And it's generosity, it's staying engaged with your communities is what we're trying to do as well. We're trying to do it with our communities, these communities need service also, and we appreciate you guys staying plugged in.
Thank you.
All right, who was next? Who's going to follow that?
This is not being disrespectful.
I'm Conrad Muchler. I'm here representing Mobility Worldwide, and this is Dale Beckman. And we're going to tell you briefly about, I'm going to talk about the history of Mobility Worldwide, how it got started and how it's gotten to where it is today. And first, I just want to thank Marc and everybody here for this week. What a tremendous event and what a great opportunity to meet everybody. And it's so nice to be able to feel comfortable speaking to people while you're covered in sawdust. You know? It doesn't happen everywhere. Mobility Worldwide got started when a missionary, about 30 years ago, a missionary in the Congo contacted a minister in Missouri and said, I need your help. I've got people here that I'm serving who don't have the use of their legs, whether through disease or injury or birth defects. They are literally crawling in the dirt, and I need a way for them to be able to get around. I need something that will stand up to the rugged conditions. We don't have roads or improved paved paths or anything like that. This minister contacted an engineer that he knew who designed the carts that you've seen this week. They're as rugged as the terrain that they're meant to serve in. And you know, they've evolved over the years, but they're basically the same as the carts that we see here tonight. And you know, this year we will deliver the 100,000th cart overseas. They generally go to, we used to say third world nations, they're developing countries, and all over the world, India and Africa, Central America, anywhere they're needed. And we work with service organizations. We deliver them to these organizations, and they get them to the people that need them in whatever country. So our affiliate, our shop in Holland, Michigan, consists of about 70 volunteers. And you know, we're one of the larger shops. Some of them are literally garage operations with just a few people making cars when they can. But the way our shop in Holland got started is we had some people that were contributing to mobility because they had heard about it as a cause, and some of them got together and said, you know, I think we could make these things. And so they started a shop, and it's grown to what it is today. We make 15 carts a week in the shop in Holland. And, you know, and we have, as I say, 70 volunteers, all volunteers, and they, you know, they tend toward retired folks, and we have woodworkers and engineers and people that paint. We've got one gentleman that he turned 93 on St. Patrick's Day, and he paints some of the wooden parts for us. And so it's a great mission. I remember the guy who brought me into it, his name is Al Kindig, one of the founders of our shop. He liked to say that we serve, you know, two missions, really. We provide carts to put people that need mobility, and we keep some dangerous old guys off the street. I'm not saying that.
Speaking of
So, we're really honored to be here to be able to tell you about, Dale's going to tell you about some of his experiences directly with distributions. But I know what inspires me is, you know, one verse of scripture where the king replied, whatever you've done for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you've done for me. And that's how a lot of us feel about what we do for mobility. And so with that, Dale?
I'm just going to add one thing to Conrad's comment about the shop. Several months ago, one of the men who works every Tuesday packing the carts into the boxes to be shipped said, "You got something for my brother? He went blind 5 years ago." And I'm one of the supervisors, and I said, "Absolutely." And then we figured out what he could do. And he comes every Tuesday, volunteers, and does something that anybody else could do, but he's able to do without seeing. And that's the kind of people we have working for us. My wife and I have traveled to several countries seeing the people when they receive the carts. And that is a life-changing experience, and I'm just going to share a couple of those stories with you. The first story I'll tell you is I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I went back to Vietnam about 2018 with a bunch of Vietnam veterans called the Dove Fund, and one of the things they did was distribute our carts. And so we're at this place, and the carts have been shipped in boxes, we put them together, and now we're giving the carts to the people that need them. And there were two men, old people, about my age, and they were double amputees, and they each got a cart. And at the end, after we were done, I talked to the Vietnamese person who was helping us handle this whole thing, and I asked him about them, and he said, well, they were veterans of what they call the American War. And I said, what side were they on? And he just looked at me like, and he says, I don't know, because it didn't matter anymore. They were veterans, and they were getting what they needed. And that was really moving to me. In January of this year, we went to Kenya. And we went to a place where a 6-year-old girl who probably had spina bifida, although I'm a doctor, I didn't examine her, she could not possibly use her legs at all. So she couldn't crawl like a kid can crawl. She would have had to do an army crawl if she wanted to get anywhere. She was 6 years old, and she was given the cart 3 months or 4 months before we saw her. To get to her house, we had to leave Nairobi and drive down gravel roads for a long ways, and then we had to take a 2-track for a half mile until we got to her compound. And there are a group of houses. There's no grass. The houses are wattle and daub. That means sticks put together with mud and cow manure. And there was one spigot for water for the entire community. None of the houses had electricity, although, you know, it's interesting, they must have had a hot spot somewhere because people had cell phones. And this little 6-year-old now was pedaling around in her compound, showing off for us, really. And she is now not going to have to be carried by her mother or her older siblings. She is going to be able to go to school. She is going to become a contributing member of society instead of being hidden away. And that's what happens to so many children in those countries who are disabled. They get hidden away because it's a shameful thing. And our recipient organizations, that was done by Partners for Care. They have one person whose sole job is to find people that need a cart, get them the cart, and then make sure it's working for them. And that's the kind of partnerships that we have. We have many. We do this with Lions Club. We do this with Rotary Club. We do this with churches. We do this with hospitals. We do it with whoever knows who needs one. That's what we do. I want to say thank you to all of you, and the same thing as the last guy said. I made these and they ain't perfect. Now it's always dangerous to come to Marc Adams School of Woodworking and give away something wood. But these are recipe holders. Each one has my card on it. Each one has our little decal on it. Please take one, and if you have a mother-in-law who uses recipe cards, you can take two. Next to it are brochures, and you may not want to take a brochure, but take it anyway, because inside of it is a list of all of our shops. And when you get home, you can find out how close it is to your home, and you may be close enough to be a volunteer. And now, Marc, this happened, by the way, to me, because I was telling Eric last year at a class about mobility and handing him my card, and Marc walked by, and Eric says, Marc, you gotta hear this, this is amazing, this is, it's the only way Eric can do it. And Marc says, I'm too busy, give me the car. 2 weeks later, he called me and invited me here. So this is a model made by one of our volunteers, and in appreciation for our being here, thank you so much. And now we're going to submit you to about a 1 minute and 30-second video.
Okay. I think the volume, did you turn the volume down on the Marc? Did you turn the volume down on this?
Oh, I did, yeah.
You turned that.
Mobility. It's an essential part of life. Crawling, walking, running, jumping. They're things we don't often have to think about. But for others, it's a very different story. According to the World Health Organization, over 70 million people in developing countries need wheelchairs, but only 5% have access to them. That includes children. Children who won't get the same opportunities as others their age, like going to school or helping their families with essential things like collecting water. Unless we help. And that help starts here. This is one of our mobility cards, custom made right here in Holland, Michigan, thanks to our dedicated team of volunteers. Our cards are designed to go where standard wheelchairs can't and are hand-powered, so any child with a leg or foot handicap can easily get around. But to them, it's not just a cart. It's a symbol of independence. It's a tool for equal opportunity. It's the gift of mobility. And that gift is life-changing. With your help, we can change her, his, and their lives today.
I don't think.
We're done.
Now, other than, Marc, just yesterday, from our shop in Holland, we shipped out 80 of the child-sized carts through World Vision, that's our partner in this case, and they're headed for Syria and Turkey to aid the people that were in those areas that were devastated by the earthquakes not too long ago. So that's thanks.
Thank you. Eric, are you next? Yep. Come on up.
You don't need this yet, do you?
No.
Okay.
So it was a good day to pick, you know, presentations with the glue ups. I got a good amount on my shirt.
That's a real woodworker.
Yeah, I don't know about, I'm a wood turner. We don't know, we're not as good with glue. I'd like to thank Mark and everyone here for just an incredible week. So I'm just, you know, kind of a humble wood turner. I've been honored to be invited by Mark to teach here a couple of years now. But this may be the most humbling and meaningful thing to have done here at Mark Adams. I'm big. So as a kid, my dad was a wood carver, right? And he carved birds. And there used to be these wood shows, and there'd be lots of, with all these bird carvers, there was this organization called the Art, and they'd come out and they'd set up a little shop during some of these, this one in particular carving show. And I remember as a kid running around the aisles and all these other, you know, probably bothering every woodworker in the place as this little kid. But they'd have these wild birds, and I was just completely transfixed by them. Now, I've talked to a number of you guys also, a lot of hunters here. Now I have to say, hunters and wildlife rehab, like I grew up in a family of hunters. I went out hunting, I killed one thing, and I learned at that point that I liked going out, I wasn't going to shoot anything again. So anyway, let's fast forward a number of years now, and I find this mouse. It was outside. I probably got, the mother may have died in a mousetrap for all I know. But so here's this baby mouse, and I thought, well, I know about this place that I saw as a kid, this, you know, this wildlife rescue. So here I am taking a baby mouse, you know, driving, I don't know, 40 minutes to this place. And they, like, you drove all this way for a baby mouse? I'm like, yep. And they're like, well, you know, we're probably going to have to euthanize it. Like, it's so small, it's not going to make it, whatever. And I said, no, I understand. Like, you know, I want, if there was something I could do, I wanted to do it. And they're like, well, you're probably the kind of person that should volunteer here. And have you had any experience with this kind of stuff? And I said, no, but if you need, like cages cleaned or crap shoveled, I said, I'm at least fit to do that. So I've been at this place for 8 years now, and despite being a wood artist, which is I mean, I followed a passion. Doing this is every bit, if not more so. I mean, it feeds the gut. Just how this organization works. We're a completely nonprofit. We're not a state-run rescue, so we don't get. We exist on the compassion of other people, and most of the time, I think we do with like 5,500 animals a year. If it's in driving distance, they call up and they say, what on earth do we do with this duck or raccoon or whatever? And we'll say, just bring it in. We'll take a look. And because a person like myself, and I'm sure a lot of you or anyone who we can help, you feel helpless when you see an animal hurting, and you just want anyone hurting. I mean, all these. It's why we're here. You know, it's why all of us are here to. Someone's hurting, and you want to help them somehow, right? Anyway, these people that try to do something for a house that a person can donate to, and it's like a thank you to help them out of the bind that they were in. Why don't we do some of the slides, so you guys could just see what we do. Sorry, I'm used to getting up in front of people. I can talk and do that kind of stuff, but this is, it's hard to talk about. Okay, so I'm not going to, the first couple of slides, the director kind of put together for me. I won't read you all the stuff, it's not really necessary. I do have I have some that I can hand out if you want to actually take the time to read them, and I have some other stuff. I have a brochure and a magnet to hand that everyone can take too. But the thing is, this organization started, it was essentially a lady who had, in Pennsylvania, who had some holistic knowledge about things, and she treated animals that she found because she was just an animal nut, like the 100 other people that volunteer there. With that, we have the director, who is the daughter of the woman that started it. She's now passed. There's one other administrator, and then everything else is also just volunteer based. So there's essentially 2 paid positions, and the director, she takes money because she just absolutely has it's her whole entire life. There's animals constantly, like, they used to be in her house, now there's actually a building for them to go to. So right now, it is just starting to be baby season. What I wanted to mention though, back to the hunters though. So hunters all recognize that there are seasons to hunt things, and there's a reason for that. A lot of it's just to make sure that we're living in kind of some semblance of equilibrium with the animals. And the problem with, say, like a poaching, like say if a poacher decides to shoot a fawn, or not a fawn, like a doe, sometime out of season. Well, that doe may be raising babies. You know, she might have fawns. And when you kill the mother, well then, the babies are just gonna starve. And it's not just, a poacher that might do that. The nice thing is actually hunters kind of keep the populations down, because if they don't, then they're getting hit, then the mothers are getting hit by cars. And anyway, we are the ones that when someone finds, some starving baby, and of any number of species, we're the ones that raise them. And we have incredibly good success at raising, so here's, a collection of, thousands of squirrels we hand feed each year. Among every species of songbird you can imagine, all sorts of ducks, literally everything. Skunks, raccoons, this is a fox kit, that's a woodchuck. Just to do a little plug for possums. They're a nasty looking critter, right? They do, however, so they're a marsupial, one of the few in North America. I think their blood is, I'm not a biologist, but they can't transmit rabies, for one. They're one of the few species one of the few mammals in the U.S. that can't. And on top of that, they just eat like ticks and other, really, and insects. Like they're nothing but good for to live around. So yeah, I don't know what you can say. If that's not the cutest little thing you've ever seen, what possums are, yeah, 4,500 baby animals we raise a year. So, like that's a nest of squirrels. A lot of times what happens is, someone is, usually not woodworkers, it's usually a tree comes down somehow, the developer for example, and a whole essential litter of squirrels will be, dehomed. And someone has a soft enough heart to say, you know what, I feel bad for these, what can I do to help them? And then they're the one that come into us. So these are flying squirrels. I never even knew they were in Pennsylvania before I started working at this place. They are, again, adorable. I have to say that the one nice thing about working there is you get to, up close and get to really, I don't know, for me it's inspiring. As a wildlife artist, it's extremely inspiring. Baby fox, baby raccoon, baby squirrel. This is like all spring long, and it sounds crazier than a zoo in there because raccoons in particular, just like, you know, when they come in, they're scared to death. And, you know, you kind of almost have to force them to be comfortable enough to be fed by us. But they are freaking out the whole time. And now the one thing is we also have to be kind of careful with the animals, and you have to know enough about them to actually, we're not looking to, and I see it all the time now on like social media, they have, they're like domesticating wild animals, and that's not what we're interested in at all. Like we want to, we're not trying to impose anything on the animals other than undoing whatever damage was done to them and getting them back out into the wild where they belong. So like an owl, for example, also maybe not the cutest baby animal. You actually can't make eye contact with them because they imprint very easily. And if they imprint, they are going to have a very hard, they almost think they're a person, or they just don't understand how to be an owl anymore. So it's just that kind of stuff to make sure to not only be caring for these animals, but the goal is always to get them back out into the wild and not have any kind of negative effects on them. So I'm just going to tell a few stories. And leave it at that. But so, one of my favorite things that ever came in was this baby beaver, right? Because it's a woodworker. but no, more than that, they're actually pretty social animals, and prior to this one, all of the ones that came in, unfortunately, as babies like this, as young ones, they would just kind of give up. They would never reach to a point where they could be released. And what it turned out is because they're so social, they actually, we're like so hands-off with the animals as much as we can be because we don't want to imprint on them. But beavers, because on account of how social they are, you almost need to treat them like a dog. Like you actually have to be like interactive with them, and not like petting them or anything like that, but you have to like interact with them. So anyway, this guy came in covered in ticks. I mean, you know, I think it had flooded recently, so it was washed away from its parents, or the parents died, or who knows how it got to this point that it did where someone found it. But it came in covered in ticks. They get all these ticks off, and then there's worse yet, than whatever wound it had also had maggots. So I mean, it's an incredibly bad spot that this little one was in. And then it takes 2 years to actually properly rehabilitate from a baby to, you know, a releasable adult beaver that we can just release back into a river. But this one, you know, we successfully raised it and got it back, you know, back into a river, you know, 2 years later. And it's just an incredible amount of dedication actually to do that. And with every animal that comes in, we give it our absolute best shot. So here's a great blue heron that came in. So it had this hook in it, but it was worse than that. Like the whole spool was like all over its body. So obviously it was in bad shape. So somehow someone was called out, and we have people on the staff, as well as being rabies vaccinated, we can go out and actually capture stuff when people call. Like there's a way to do it, and you have to be certified to do it. So anyway, so here was kind of like a picture early on where it came in. I guess actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the hook it had swallowed it too. So that was just like the lead. Anyway, here they are like operating on it effectively. Now we don't do like full on. We're not a veterinary clinic. Like it's not. We don't. That is out of our financial ability. You know, we do the best we can for the animals that we have with the best procedures that we have, which are not completely rudimentary, but they're not as sophisticated as a vet. But anyway, so after all this, I forget how long it took to rehabilitate this heron, but there he is flying off. And I have to say, like, the re-release, or the, you know, setting something free again is, it's rewarding for everybody. They also started doing, like, some, as I mentioned, kind of like to almost full circle it, like, I got inspired by just seeing these hawks as a kid. And now they're doing more and more camp programs for kids where they can actually come in and see the wildlife and that sort of thing. So that's been a really positive thing that they've started doing there as well. So this video, I just get press again. I'm sorry for the bad quality, but I just want to stress, if nothing else, that, you know, they're not just dumb animals. You know, they have oh, you'll see. So, actually, before I pause, this swan, it was at a retirement community, and they're a bonded pair, so they live together. Like there's a couple, like geese are like this as well, but swans are also. Once they bond, they're bonded for life. So anyway, we get a call. They're extremely upset. The fox had attacked one of the swan. There's blood all over. I mean, it looked like a mess, and them being like birds, it was particularly bad. But anyway, so we go out. We carefully, you know, get this swan into our into the clinic. It just needed kind of like the ability to be in a place where it could heal for about 6 weeks before we could re-release it. So when we release it back, obviously back into the same place. If we can, we always try to release it in the same place we got it.
Now try. You're hitting the wrong button. Here.
I'm not tech savvy. There we go. So here he is waddling down to his mate. She comes right over him. So that's, I mean, that shows exactly what we do and why we do it. So thank you guys. Thank you all for really letting me be here. Every charity here, I mean, I feel like it's just animals in some ways compared to what you guys are doing, but matters to me.
That's not just animals, that's
I'm David Stein. I'm the Executive Director of I.D.E.S, International Disaster Emergency Service. Really, I just get the privilege of serving with an incredible group of people who are passionate about taking care of others. They love people. It's why when I hire someone, I say, hey, why don't you take a huge pay cut and come work with us, but do something great, something that's a lot of fun, something that meets big needs around the world. So I'm going to go ahead and show the video.
First one?
There, yep. And then it'll kind of introduce you a little bit to I.D.E.S, and then I'll just share for a couple of minutes.
We are I.D.E.S. International Disaster Emergency Service is a nonprofit meeting physical and spiritual needs of suffering people around the world in the name of Jesus. At I.D.E.S, we are eager to show Christ's love to those who are affected by disaster and other urgent needs. We help hurting people through 5 focus areas. We provide relief for disasters around the globe, working through global mission partners who serve as the hand and feet of Jesus, caring for those in need. We work with volunteers and local churches to clean up communities and repair damaged homes, both internationally and domestically. Whether a hurricane, tornado, flood, or other type of disaster, I.D.E.S is quick to respond, providing funds and leading volunteers to meet critical needs in the name of Jesus. Volunteers working in affected areas muck out and repair homes, remove fallen trees, tarp roofs, and build sheds, all with the heart of showing the love of Jesus. We ensure there is nutritious food for those who do not have enough to eat, and work with food pantries and do large-scale food distributions. Working with local partners, we provide meals and staple foods to those who are hungry, while also nourishing their souls with the hope that can be found only in Jesus. Our GAP food packing program also allows volunteers to share God's love as they participate in meal packing events. GAP meals are then shipped to our global partners who distribute them to those who are malnourished. Our community development efforts give people the tools they need to create a better future for themselves and their families. Well drilling, livestock distribution, agricultural supplies, and vocational training are frequent examples of community development projects. Many people around the world do not have access to essential medical care. I.D.E.S is committed to providing our mission partners with medications, equipment, and other resources which help them care for many thousands of patients each year. These areas of focus are centered around evangelism. Disasters and other hardships are never welcome, but they create powerful opportunities for God's people to live out His transforming love in this hurting world. I.D.E.S is motivated by Jesus' call to love your neighbor as yourself, and His commission to go into all the world and make disciples of all nations.
The partnership that we have with I.D.E.S allows us to both meet the physical needs, but also the spiritual needs of people in desperate places. Some of the areas where we work, they're suffering civil wars, suffering from famines and droughts, and we ourselves don't have the ability to meet every one of those needs, but yet we can partner with a group like I.D.E.S. The donations that I.D.E.S receives empowers our workers on the ground to be able to do much more than we could ever do on our own. So we're really super thankful for our partnership with I.D.E.S.
At I.D.E.S, we value the opportunity to partner with Christ followers just like you as we provide help and hope to those in need. Visit IDES.org today to learn about volunteer opportunities, partner with I.D.E.S, or see what God is doing around the world. Join us as we answer Jesus' call to change the world with His redeeming love. Are you ready?
So I.D.E.S has been around for 50 years. In that time, we've developed a lot of partnerships. We're a small organization just on the north side of Indianapolis in a suburb called Noblesville. There's 15 of us who meet needs, and we operate in over 130 countries around the world to meet physical and spiritual needs of suffering people. That's our mission. We call it help is the physical and hope is the spiritual. So help and hope. And the reason we do it is because we care. Yes, we want to reach people for Christ, and the truth is, as crass as this may sound, disasters are opportunities. They're an opportunity to share with somebody. They're an opportunity for us to show love. to do what's right, to meet people's needs, whether it's hunger relief, medical care, or a natural disaster. There are opportunities to do what we need to be doing as human beings and taking care of others at their worst. Evangelism and discipleship, we distribute thousands of Bibles around the world every single year. We host leadership trainings. We'll get off of that picture of that guy. Leadership trainings around the world, as well as helping with church buildings being constructed and educational programs also. And again, that is kind of the heart of who we are when it comes down to our core. Beginning of 2020, I gave a presentation and I said, hey, we're actually starting to see advancements towards maybe winning this battle of hunger relief. Because 1 in 9 people go to bed hungry. And not like hungry like my son that'll, down 14 slices of pizza and somehow he's still hungry. But starving. Starving people. 1 in 9, which is a terrible number, but it used to be 1 in 8. And so globally, there was this step towards improvement. And then COVID happened. And nobody's really counting at the moment. And then Russia invaded Ukraine. And now what our partners say is things like, people are taking from the hungry to feed the starving because there's not food around the world. We have a saying that says, empty bellies have no ears. Empty bellies have no ears. And it reminds us, and it reminds our partners and the work that we do, that it is about the spiritual side, but gosh, we got to meet a physical need. Starving people need food. Those who are hurting need care. And so we do. We provide food in a number of different ways. In fact, my box that I make, one of them, hopefully it'll be good enough. It's not good enough. But we have a church that does a craft show, and everything is handmade. In fact, the gentleman who introduced us to Marc, he's on the wall in there, Lieutenant Bill Rayleigh. He comes here. He builds things for this and does an auction. We do an auction, and it raises money for world hunger relief. So my box is going to go into that. Is it worthy of an auction? No, but these people are there because they care about helping others more than anything anyway. The thing about hunger relief is it's tied directly to community development for us. Because you can get in the habit of just meeting a need constantly instead of identifying the source of the need and maybe allowing people to meet their own need. And so we also engage in community development. Community development is what we would call a hand up instead of a handout. So it's things like clean water projects, drilling wells, and we do hundreds of clean water projects all around the world every single year. It's things like livestock projects, teaching people how to care for livestock. It's things like irrigated farms. This is Kenya. This is the desert, but under the desert is a river. And so being able to tap into that with irrigated wells and teach farming, this last drought, and there's kind of been a long-term drought there, as we reached out to our partners and said, hey, what are your needs in the drought? They said, well, the truth is we have these farms that you put in, and so our people are good, even in the midst of the drought. In fact, they're taking their produce and they're giving it away to other people. Could you just come put in some more farms for us? And so we're able to put in farms. So community development, it takes from the hunger relief and says, hey, how can we actually maybe find a solution to this problem instead of constantly giving away? And I'm notes tied, and I apologize for that, but I am. I had a partner in India, a friend of mine who did a food distribution, and somebody stood up and said, praise God. And my friend said, which God are you talking about? This is India, there's a God for everything. And the man said, well, only the one true God would provide food like this. And so my friend was able to share about the one true God to this man. And this man now joins him and has become a pastor and goes out and provides help and then teaches about Jesus at the same time. So like I said, these things are all opportunities that in the right context to be able to share the love of Christ. Community development is also tied to medical care because clean water prevents a lot of medical needs. A lot of medical needs that we deal with on a regular basis, they're quite preventable And clean water is the start for that. Clean water and sanitation is a big need all around the world and something that we do on a regular basis. We put in 250 wells last year alone. Last year alone, we were able to help over 500,000 people all around the world with the projects that we have going on, again, through our own staff as well as through our partnerships. I was in South Sudan last year, and this was our hospital. This was our mobile clinic. If I ever write a book, it'll be called something like Under a Tree in Africa, because every place we went, the picture just doesn't do it justice. The branches on this tree were further wingspan than this room, easily. We had over 100 people gathered under a tree, including vehicles under a tree, and this was our medical clinic, where we provided for all kinds of needs, many of them very basic, like this little boy here who had malaria. Very, very basic, except that this village had no outside people. Our truck there got there winding through the desert. I have no idea how. I thought we were lost, but they found their way there because there is no road. Our doctor said that by next week, this little boy would have been past the point of no return from malaria. He couldn't keep any food down. He couldn't keep anything down. He had to have a shot just to be able to keep down the medication, the anti-malarials. So very preventable things. In fact, this doctor is our doctor. His parents both died from very preventable things. His mom died from tetanus, and his dad died from dehydration due to diarrhea. And so he said, well, wait a second, what can I do about that? And he went off to college and he became a doctor so that he could come back. And he lives in a village in the middle of nowhere with a medical degree from Uganda and from Kenya, and he could go anywhere with his background. But because of his heart, that's where he goes, into the middle of nowhere in villages to meet needs. There's a man with his IV hooked up to the tree, because that's what we had available to hook things up. So you do what you got to do. This old man, and I did it too. We had a young lady in our team that said, this old man was there. He's 50. Now to them, he's old. He also has nobody to care for him. And in this culture, if you don't have anybody to care for you, you're just alone. You fend for yourself. You do what you can, or you die. So when we found out what was going on with him, we introduced him to the minister of the local church there that had been trained, and he now takes care of him. He now makes sure that he has what he needs on a regular basis. Disaster response, what we're known for, and I'm going to move fast because I'm going too long here. We deal with all kinds of disasters, whether man-made or natural disasters. All around the world. This is in Ukraine. My project manager is in Ukraine, as well as in Turkey. We have project managers as well. In Ukraine alone, man, the need is incredible. I was there last June to visit with our partners, to look strategically at the direction that we move going forward. And regardless of the higher up people, we'll say the politicians, and the direction that they take things, the people on the ground are hurting, and they need help. And so we have these incredible volunteers and these incredible partners who go and they meet needs. We've been able to help over 100,000 Ukrainians, both in Ukraine as well as Poland, Moldova, and surrounding countries. We have 6 refugee centers. We've been able to provide vehicles to provide equipment and food, as well as to evacuate people who needed to be evacuated. We've sent 11 shipping containers full of supplies and food as well. The people there have this feeling of dread. They have an air raid warning app, which was, I was sitting in a hotel and all of a sudden somebody's phone sounded like an air raid warning, and I thought, man, that's a terrible ringtone. You can't put that here. And then everybody's phone started going off, and then we had to go into a shelter. But that's the way they live, is this constant knowing that their phone is going to alert them at some point. They want to get back to what was. So we're able to be there to meet a need. This little video, I'm just going to play it really quick here. It's very short. This is a well that we put in occupied Ukraine. We put it in 2.5 years ago. And it was a well that we wouldn't necessarily have normally done because it's not out in the middle of nowhere. But for whatever reason, we felt like, you know what, we feel like we need to do this. This well needs to go in here at this location. And so we went outside of our norms and we went ahead and put a well in. Fast forward to Russia's invasion, and they cut off all supplies. They cut off all water, all gas, all food, everything, every place that they take over. So there's no water in the entire community, except for a well that for some reason we decided to put in 2 years ago. For some reason, meaning God knew what was coming, and he went ahead and made sure that this was here, and people are able to have clean water, when otherwise they probably wouldn't have been able to at this point. Turkey, my team in Turkey right now is providing over 90,000 meals a month. There's an incredible group of people that have basically food trucks, if you will. And so they're providing a ton of food. They rebuilt a bakery, and the baker was gracious enough to say, hey, can I provide 1,200 loaves of bread for you to give out every single day? So 1,200 loaves of bread on top of that. And that man has no affiliation to us at all whatsoever, but he was just appreciative of what was going on there. I'm just going to flip through. I feel like I've taken a long time. Here in the U.S., this is just from the other day. My U.S. disaster coordinator is in Mississippi, leading volunteers as they deal with the tornadoes that went through Mississippi right before this started. So I feel like the entire time I've been here, I've been on my phone coordinating stuff that's been going on there. Instead of maybe listening to Marc and others tell me what I should do, which is why I always go saying, what am I doing now? So I apologize for that. In Florida, we have volunteers as well. If you want a trip to Florida, come on. We'll put you to work. We'll find work for you. If you want to volunteer, we love volunteers. It's how we do what we do. I always say if we're in a community and there's the availability to help people and we have the funds and we have the volunteers, we'll stay there until those things run out. But it's the volunteers that keep us going, because you can rebuild a home here in the U.S. for a lot of money. Or you can use volunteers, and that money goes a lot longer to rebuild many, many, many more homes. So volunteers are the lifeblood of what we do. So I just want to say thank you. You know, what a privilege to be here and just get to share a little bit, get to be blessed by some incredible instructors. Marc, thank you for inviting all of us. Charities, this was amazing to hear about you guys. Incredible group of folks here. So thank you all so much.
So, by the way, dessert tonight was provided by some of his volunteers, so that's why you saw that great dessert house. And also, we talked the other day about the canes that are out here that Don and Herman had made. And just as a reminder for you, if you know somebody that might benefit from having a cane, if you'd like to maybe get one for yourself, those are still available. You can see Don probably tomorrow some point in time. And the other thing is, as we wrap up tomorrow, after lunch or whatever it is, we also still need to talk about finish. And when we do that, we will do that as everybody together in one big group, and then that will be our final farewell. So I got to tell you, we've done a lot of charity events here over the years, a lot. And so we've been very, very blessed to be able to offer to do those, and we've always had great response from people to come and to support those. This is the first time we've tried this particular format, and to be honest with you, I don't know how you count success in your life, but I don't know how you could be any more successful than this is, and I don't know how possibly we could have chosen 4 better groups. And so let's give them a big round of applause. And tomorrow, so here's the deal again. So you've had a chance to meet them, to learn a little bit more about them. You've been with them all week long. Tomorrow is the opportunity to finish your obligation to being here. And I encourage you to consider going beyond what our commitment was to be here. And you can give it to one or you can give it to all. That's up to you. We're just honored, and I know how proud and privileged these people are to be here and what it means to them for your generosity. One final thing. You might have noticed up here, I've talked about Emil and all this incredible work he did. Well, his wife, Nancy, who's come and taken a handful of classes here over the years, both are retired anesthesiologists. She made this quilt, it says MASW, and it has the number 30 on it. And she made it, and she did everything, cut it all and quilted it, and did all this incredibly beautiful work. And on the back are pens, and it was made with the intention to have everybody that comes here this year sign it somewhere, and then of course, ultimately, we'll be able to put it up somewhere throughout the school and display everybody that was here as a part of our 30th anniversary. And so thank you very much to the Nancy and Hannah. And we will somewhere, probably tomorrow, put this out somewhere, whether it's in the cafeteria or on a table somewhere. But, you know, Susie and I are incredibly blessed by the people that are here. You have changed our lives. We are different and better people because of you. And I don't know where I'd be in my life if it wasn't for this program and how you guys have helped make it so successful. Everybody have a good night. Thank you very much. Isn't that cool? For doing this, bro. Man, you did it straight to heaven.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah, some of the